Kitty?
Yes.
In the room we are in.
Yes,
All
Freddy.
right, great. Let's rock and roll. Right. So task E. Maybe before we even go into the feedback deck, I shared with you guys the reflection deck, and the reflection deck was talking more about the pre-release. Most of you would have probably gone through the feedback deck, and some of you might not have gone through the feedback deck. But I just wanted to highlight a couple of things from the pre-release. So in the pre-released information, remember, they gave you information about, firstly, about the marketing expenditure and how the marketing expenditure works. So what they said to you is that every franchisee of Fodjan contributes 3% into a marketing fund. Every franchisee contributes 3% of their revenue into the marketing fund, and that is used to determine or to be spent on the marketing costs of the group on behalf of all the franchisees. So it's to promote the activities of the restaurants and the franchisees. So I think you will find it quite interesting that when you look at the financial information of this business, you'll realize that the financial information has the balance sheet, and on the balance sheet, they've got what they call the restricted cash. They've got what they call the restricted cash. Are you guys looking at that? So if you look at the balance sheet and the current asset, they've got the restricted cash, and they also have in the income statement, the actual expenditure spent on marketing, and in the income statement as well, they've got the contributions that Fodjan receives as the 3% from each of the franchisees. And the auditor in me always says, you need to understand the numbers. You need to understand what is happening, the flow of the information. And what I expect from you guys as part of your preparation is to go and unpack that. So what does unpacking that mean? Is really to say, what's the opening balance? Take 2022, for instance. Take the opening balance of the restricted cash, which will be the 2021 balance, add the contribution for the marketing that will be found in the revenue line, and then you subtract the expense, the marketing fund expenditure, and then you should get the closing balance. So if you say opening balance plus contribution minus marketing expenditure spend, you get to the closing balance. That is quite key to understand the flow of information, to say, right, it means this business, Fodjan, always has a balance that has been contributed as a 3% of revenue of the franchisees, but that cash is ring-fenced and is going to only be used by Fodjan for the purpose of promoting the activities of the franchise. And then you do the same for 2021. I guess you don't have opening balance, but when you do that calculation, you can work backwards to get the opening balance. Remember, when you look at that specific email, they're very clear about what they are triggering. They said to you in the PRI, now let's turn to the email of the PRI. When you get there, you will realize that the CFO is telling you that, financial manager, I've had a discussion with the external audit partner that is auditing our books. And the external auditors, they mentioned that they've been hearing from their clients, and some of their clients are our franchisees. And the franchisees are complaining that as much as they are contributing this 3% into the fund, they are not seeing the benefits coming from the marketing. So that is building the context. It's not yet the trigger. Then they say, because of that, the CFO is saying, I would need you to assist me. So now when you see, I will need you to assist me, now you're starting to see the triggers. So what assistance is the CFO going to need from you? The CFO is going to need you to assist with putting an audit lens. Use your audit skill and knowledge to really look at this marketing expenditure or this marketing fund to see if everything is happening the way it should happen, basically. That's the first request. I want you to put on your audit lens and look at that. That's number one. Okay. They also say, do not forget the tax consequences or the tax, because I would want you to assist with the tax. So do you guys agree they've triggered both the audit around the fund, understanding the flow of funds, that 3% of the contribution of 3% of revenues contributed by the franchisees into the fund, and then it's spent on marketing costs. So I would need you to look at it from an audit side, and also don't forget the tax implications. So that was the trigger. And if you, for those who haven't gone through the reflection video and the reflection slides. Thank you. Right. So those who haven't gone through the reflection deck, you will notice that when you go through it, it's important to then now unpack, okay, what actually do I need to do? And what you need to go and do then at this point in time is to say, right, from an audit perspective, remember this is contractual. So there is a contract in place between Fodjan and the franchisees to say, we would like you guys to contribute 3% of your franchise revenue into the fund, and we will use the funds in the fund only for the purpose that they're intended for. So that is a contract, a binding agreement. So they cannot do anything with the funds outside the powers that have been granted in terms of the franchise agreement. So then that's quite important, because as auditors, we always want to fall back onto something. So in this case, the falling back onto is falling back onto this franchise agreement. But then you need to be like, but what else? What if they go against that? That will be a breach of contract. Okay. If it's a breach of contract, could it have implications? Absolutely. Absolutely. A breach of a contract will have a number of implications. Okay. Then understand what the implications would be. But is it just a breach of contract? What about law? Is there any law that will govern things like a marketing fund? Not a lot per se, but if you just Google and say, is there any law applicable to managing a marketing fund in a franchise agreement? It will take you to the Consumer Protection Act. And then you'll realize that the Consumer Protection Act actually talks about marketing funds, but it doesn't have a lot of prescriptions. It only gives you 3 or 4 principles. Number one, that the contribution into the fund must be fair and reasonable. Number two, once you contribute into the fund, the franchisor or whoever is administrating the fund must use the funds for the intended purpose. They cannot go and spend it for any other purpose except the purpose that they've been contributed for. That's the principle number 2 that is coming from law. Number 3, accurate accounting records must be kept. And that's what actually made me go and want to check the numbers and do a reconciliation to understand that what has gone in, or opening balance plus what has gone in minus what has been spent, is it the closing balance? Or is there any funds that are missing? Okay, because the law says accurate records must be kept. That's the 3rd principle. The 4th principle that's coming from the Consumer Protection Act was the fact that on a regular basis, you must send an account statement to each of the franchisees, indicating how you spend the money that they've contributed into the fund. So I guess from an audit point of view, if I put my audit hat on, I'm thinking, what are some of the risks that one will be subjected to if they're looking at a marketing fund? I guess it's maybe having excessive contributions that are not reasonable, or spending the money in ways that are not intended in terms of the contractual agreement or in terms of the law. Then we've got a non-compliance with laws and regulations. Not sending the regular statements. Again, that's non-compliance with laws and regulations. And then if I also continue to put my audit hat on, I'll say, then what are some of the responses, the audit responses that one needs to put in place? Then you need to start thinking about assertions to say, okay, so we've got an accuracy assertion, we've got an existence assertion, and how would one respond to those? So that's the extent of work that I would expect from an audit lens. Then from a tax lens, what would I expect from a candidate sitting with this PRI for 5 days to be doing? So I would expect you guys to do a number of things. When we're talking tax, which tax are we talking about? Is this income tax, or is this value-added tax? Is this estate duty tax, donations tax? Which tax are we referring to? Of course, we're talking at a primary purpose. We're looking at the value-added tax implications, and then the income tax implications. Surely then the income tax implications will include all types of income tax. Remember, donations is in the income tax. Remember, dividend taxes in the income tax. Those taxes are part of income tax. But would I expect dividends tax? No. Would I expect donations tax? No. But I'm expecting normal income tax, and I'm expecting capital gains tax. I'm not sure. Are they buying any assets with these funds? I don't think so. So maybe capital gains tax, absolutely not. So I'm only, when I'm going through this process, I'm only thinking income tax, then the value-added tax consequences. And then on the value-added tax consequences, if we were to start there. Okay, or maybe let's start with the income tax consequences, because I was on that thought. If I'm thinking of income tax consequences, I'm like, really, what is the income tax consequences for both the franchisor and the franchisee? Let's start with the franchisor. Being Fodjan, they are receiving contributions and they are spending on it. If they're receiving contribution, is it gross income? Is it gross income? The only part that I'm battling with, I mean, it's a total amount received or accrued by a resident. Are you with me? All those elements are being ticked off without any challenge. But the challenge where I usually get to, or not usually, but because this is the first time it's triggered, the challenge I'm sitting with is entitled to, on behalf of. That's where I sat for a bit and I'm like, when a fund or when a Fodjan receives these funds, are they receiving them for their own benefit? Are they entitled to use them? Or is this more on an agent basis? And that's where I was like, question mark, a big research point. Do you agree with me? Okay. And then when I was doing the research, because I cannot walk into that assessment on the 6th of December, not having a technical answer around that. Do you agree with me? I cannot walk into that assessment not having a technical answer. Because if I walk into that assessment not having a technical answer, I'm not the subject area expert. And when they trigger something as technical as this, they expect me to be the subject area expert. Do you get what I'm saying? So those are the things that I would look at. And I'm like, where am I going to get this guidance? I went to Silk because the legislation, obviously, it's just telling you exactly what it's telling you. When I got to Silk and I started reading, I was like, wow, actually, there is a paragraph in Silk that's talking about marketing fund. And it's even referring you to a guidance note that has been issued by SARS. And then I was like, wow, that's even interesting. Then I download that guidance note. And then when I download it, I go to page of contents, and then I, boom, section, clause 10 of that guidance tells you specifically how the franchisor and the franchisees are accounting for these things from a tax point of view. And then when you get there, you realize that, it's telling you the fact that as a franchisor, you are actually receiving this, even though you've got it for a specific purpose in terms of a contract, you are receiving it for yourself and on your own behalf. And it takes us to one of the case law where it's a situation where you are receiving funds, but you've got a contract that is stipulating where to use the funds, what to use the funds for. And they say that contract does not prevent you or does not preclude you from saying you've received the funds on your own behalf. It's actually, you are receiving the funds on your own behalf and for your own entitlement. It's just that you need to pass them through for a particular purpose. Are you with me? But that particular purpose is coming after you've received and you are entitled to the amounts. So it goes into that level of detail. Then I'm like, wow, I'm now feeling so confident about being the subject matter expert. It even goes as a point of distinguishing between if you were to receive the funds in your own company as a franchisor, like Fodjan, or if you are receiving the funds in a separate company, or you've created a structure, maybe a special purpose vehicles where we are channeling these funds into. We are not there. Then I can cross that's not applicable in this case. Fodjan is receiving these funds. So then we are there. Then it tells you, because you are receiving the funds, once you receive the funds, you need to spend them, meaning it will be your gross income, but you need to spend them for marketing expenditure. Then it tells you, then you will be entitled to, generally speaking, Section 11A deduction on marketing or advertising costs, because you meet all the criteria of Section 11A. Expenditure actually incurred during the year of assessment, in the production of income, in the carrying on of a trade, not of a capital in nature. Are you with me? Okay. And then I'm sitting here, I'm like, but what if we receive the funds this year? We spend 20% of the funds. Then we're going to have the balance like we do. We've got 4 million balance. Do you guys agree? So then I'm like, what do I do then in that case? Am I going to have this gross income of, call it 100 million? I spend 20% only. I get the Section 11A deduction. Then I've got this 80% net profit or net taxable income. And I get taxed on it. Does it make sense to be taxed on it? Does it? So then what do I do? I'm sure online you are giving me the answers. What do I do with this 80%? Because tax, you can apply a tax rate if you've got this 80%. But next year I'm going to spend that 80% on marketing expenditure. Do you agree? And I'm going to get a Section 11A deduction next year. And I'm not going to have gross income. Look at the mismatch. So then what happens in that case? What happens? You've got the famous section. You've got the famous section 24. Yes. Only now you say, oh, hey? Yes, which talks about future expenditure. Are you with me? In a case where you are getting gross income that flows into your gross income calculation, and you don't have the expense, but the expense is coming in the future, that's what we call an accounting mismatch. Do you guys agree with me? For accounting purposes, we wouldn't have accrued this gross income. Then what you do, SARS entitles you to claim this future expenditure allowance at the discretion of the commissioner. Then I'm like, jeepest, I probably need to go and look at that Section 24 capital C. Right.
Ready?
Yes. Maybe let me just wrap up the VAT implications. I'll take the question. Then let me get into the VAT implication. So on the VAT implication, again, I'm sitting in a situation that, well, I mean, the income that flows into the business will, or the gross income will accrue output tax, because I don't think it's a zero rated. I don't think it's a exempt supply. So as a result, it will be subject to output tax in terms of Section 71A at the standard tax rate. And then the expenditure will be subject to an input tax deduction when it happens. Obviously, input tax deductions is limited to the portion that was spent on making taxable supplies. So we need to understand whether Fodjan is making a full taxable supplies or not, or if there's an apportionment ratio that needs to be applied. Again, I know very well from my CTA knowledge that the moment you've got an agent principal question, you've got Section 54. And then I go to Section 54 of the Value Added Tax Act, and then I go and unpack it to understand whether it could be applicable. From an income tax, I think the guidance that we read concluded for us that no, there is no agency and principal relationship. Similarly, on this basis, on the VAT, they conclude on that basis. Okay, so a lot of work to have been done. It couldn't have been done over an hour or two. I would have expected at least 3 to 4 hours being spent on just really preparing for task E ahead of this session if you are a first timer, or ahead of the APC 2022 if you had the opportunity and the privilege to sit for that exam. Yeah, it seems like the questions, I'm not going to take a lot of questions because I'm always conscious of time. Yeah, let me take 2 questions at a max, and then I will look through to have the team behind me help me respond to some of the questions you can put into the chat box. There was a gentleman, it sounded like Larry. You can go again.
Yeah, it is Larry. Thank you.
Good. Go for it, Larry.
But it was just around the presentation, if you were presenting anything. It's been 1 slide since then, but I'll follow up with that question.
Oh, yes, I wasn't presenting because that's a presentation that we shared with you, I think, a couple of days ago on the reflection deck. I was just giving an overview of that presentation. Second question, Larry, you had?
No, someone keeps on muting me. I guess it's the same person who muted me on Monday. So The question is actually around this marketing account. Was what were we supposed to, I mean, I guess as part of research, we're supposed to understand the marketing fund account, what it entails, even before putting the auditing ad or the taxation ad, because when I went through this task, I thought it was key to understand the marketing funding, basically just to understand what it entails. Is it campaigns? Is it sponsorships? Is it advertising costs? You know?
Yes, absolutely. And the information was given in the PRI as to what the marketing fund entails. They told you how you contribute into the fund and what the fund is spending it on marketing activities. They even told you, they went as far as saying it's digital and television. So they were very clear and specific. And yes, you could Google more and understand how operationally it works. So absolutely, that's what I did. And if you go look at those slides, I first went into the background information and took a snapshot of the slide that was coming from the background information to understand how this fund works first before I went into the audit. Okay. Anyone else who's got a question? Just unmute and go. Second question, then last for now.
Hi, Judy.
Go for it, my lady.
I'm not sure who you're talking to, but I'll just continue.
Take it. Take it.
I have a question around the full document 5, right? And the reflection video, the reflection pack.
Okay, so what's the name first? What's your name?
My name is Kanye.
Introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. I'm Kanye.
Go for it, Kanye.
I lost my train of thought, pardon me. Well, okay, got it. The reflection video and the reflection pack, is it based on what ultimately comes out in the IOD? Because for document, the one that we're looking at tonight, I identified 2 other triggers which were not looked into in the reflection video. And I was wondering if maybe I misidentified them, or is it just that the reflection is based on what is ultimately asked on the day of the assessment?
No, well, I mean, the nice thing about where I'm standing now, I always have the opportunity of an hindsight. I always know what's in the IOD, but technically speaking, it should be fully looking at PRI without the hindsight of the IOD, like the way you would have walked through the journey. So what are the 2 additional triggers that you picked up that we didn't address?
All right, just give me 1 second. It's document 5, isn't it? The first one is set some time aside for the next few days to review the system of internal control.
Oh, you're talking, okay. Okay, is it on the system and stuff?
Yes, and then the CAT.
Oh,
also.
Yes, absolutely. Those are definite triggers, but they relate to another task. So when we address that task, it's going to be task, I can't remember, C, I think. And when we get there, I will be referring to those sections. Okay.
All right. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Great. Right. Now let's get on the day. Then on the day of the assessment, you are wearing your suit, confident as hell. You've got your pillow, you've got your blanket, you've got all your food, you're walking into Galaga or any other regional exam halls, and you're like, I'm the financial manager, I'm going to nail this assessment. Because I am a subject area expert when it comes to audit and tax in the areas that they've triggered. Do you guys agree? I'm not getting an overwhelming yes. Oh, great. And that's the level of confidence I want to see when you guys are walking on in that wall on the 6th of December. You're going to have your head held high to say, I'm going to show it flames. Right, you walk in and then they give you document E. It says, Dear Financial Manager, Mr. Mulabe's email below has reference. I've now prepared the cash book for November 2022 from the entries of the marketing funds bank statement. and using the information provided in the payment advice signed by the marketing manager, it is attached for your further review. Review? What am I supposed to review for? I can't tell what is the task, but they made reference to the email below. I hope, because at this point, I'm having a little panic as to what am I going to review for? Do you get what I'm saying? I'm not hearing the task. So I'm having a little panic, but I'm about to be a chartered accountant when I have a mini panic in my system. Remember the emotional regulation to say, no, I contain myself. I cannot be challenged by this. I'm sure the information is coming. But let's analyze this paragraph. Basically, they're giving you a cash book for November 2022. I already know November 2022 is a month following the year of assessment, the end of the year of assessment or the end of the financial year. Are you with me? Meaning it's taken from where I stopped in my recon and it's continuing. Do you guys agree with me? Do you see what I'm doing? I'm synthesizing the information that I'm seeing on the day together with the information that I saw in the PRI. I'm making it relevant as to how does this information apply relative to the one that I've seen before. And they're telling you that the cash book has been prepared based on the bank statement and the payment advices. Okay, that's good to know. But it looks like it is attached for my review, but I don't know what review I need to do. If push comes to shove, I'm going to raise review notes, because when I did a board course and when I'm at work, I raise millions of review notes. Okay, but it will be one of the tasks that I'm not clear on if this is the end, but they refer me to the email below. Let's go to the email below. So the email below, it's from the CFO, Elijah, going to the financial manager and CCing Ralph Yankees. And the financial manager is talking to, sorry, the CFO is talking to me as the financial manager and saying, my request of earlier this week has a reference. Yes, because they requested me to put on my audit hat and not to forget the tax consequences on marketing fund. So the marketing administrator who normally maintains the financial records for the marketing fund was involved in a serious motor vehicle accident on 28 November 2022. How convenient. And has been booked off for most of December 2022. Cheapest. I can already see some task following on me as a result of this accident. I've therefore asked Ralph to prepare the cash book for this fund for November 2022 and to email it to you as soon as he's done. No wonder Ralph sent me an email with the cash book for November 22. So what am I supposed to do with it? I would appreciate, ding, ding, what are you guys seeing? What's coming? What's coming? Their task. I would appreciate it if you apply your knowledge and skills to the entries in the cash book to identify anything of concern. For each concern identified, describe the documentation, being the documents and records that you would like to inspect to enable you to conclude whether any further action is required. Please do not forget to address taxation. That is the task. Maybe let me read. There's still another paragraph. Oh my word. I would like to see both the concerns that you have identified and a detailed description of the documentation required so that my staff will be able to obtain what you need. I will then share the letter with my staff and ask them to provide this to you as soon as possible. Looking forward to your findings. I'm the CFO. Okay. How many tasks do we have? So this is a task. Do you guys agree with me? So what do you do at this point? You go compare this with the task list to make sure that the two are the same. Do you agree with me? Okay. Not that Psycha or any of the professional programs will get it wrong and have differences, but you just want to make sure, and to make sure you are titling your task the right task. Is it, because I can see a couple of tasks in this task. Is it task E and F, or is it all task E? So am I going to say task E and then have everything in it? Or is it E and F, or is it E and F and G and D? Do you get what I'm saying? Okay, you've got to make sure that then where am I going to put it on my software, on my e-writing software? Is it in which task? That's why you do the comparison. How many tasks do we have? Oh, well, how many, let's call it, when we get to the task list, you see that there is one task, meaning you've got to answer all these things or respond to all these things in one email response. Are you with me? So it's one task called task E. But how many components does this task E have? How many components? 2. And what are these 2 components? The first component is or are consents. Are consents. So then already I'm saying, hi, Elijah, and maybe I'll CC Ralph. I've outlined below, per your request, the following. Number 1, consents from the cash book. But remember, those consents must address what? The consents must also address what? Okay. Now that's where we're differing. Some people, now I'm seeing two components to the task. I'm seeing consents. Number 2, I'm seeing for each consent, I must have a list of documentation or records. Are you with me? But this consents must include tax. Okay, so another candidate could see it as 3 components to the task. Absolutely fine. Are you with me? Okay, but I'm having 2 subcomponents, and the first one includes normal consents. I don't know what normal consents are, because consents are abnormal. And then also the tax implications. Are you with me? And then the list of documents. So the way you structure it, as long as you make sure you've got all those 3 pieces, as to whether you call it 1 and 2 or 1, 2, and 3, your choice. Okay, and you decide whether you're gonna have an attachment, because they're not specific about whether you can deal with you wanna deal with all these things in the email response, in the body of the email, or you wanna go and attach. Okay, fantastic. Then the work starts. You've spent your 5 minutes trying to brainstorm this, and then you're like, can we get on? Can we start the task? Right. Then this is the marketing fund cash book. You've got an opening balance, 4,157,101. Do you see I'm doing a line by line? Okay, maybe if I'm going to technically do a line by line, I need to look at the headings. There's a date, description, the person we are paying, the total amount, and then I suppose this is the split between marketing fund receipts, control account, marketing expenses, VAT, and sundry investments. Then on the 1st of November 2022, there is an opening balance of 4 million. Do you have any concern? I like what I'm seeing in the room. Where is the concern going to come from? The concern is going to come from you being an auditor, putting an audit hat on, and going and comparing this opening balance to the closing balance in the PRI that is showing you what was the closing balance of the restricted cash And it's exactly the same for 157. Do you guys agree? Am I having a concern? If it was different, I would have a concern. Then I don't have a concern. It's okay not to have a concern. Are you with me? Then you move to the next line. 2nd November 2022, fees payable for setting up bots to comment negatively on competitors and to raid Fodjan's restaurants highly on Twitter feed. I'm hearing mamas. This fee was paid to Silver Lining Media Consultant, and the amount was 287,500, split between marketing expense and the VAT. The auditor in me is checking whether that 37,500 is 15% of 250,000. I cannot help it. Okay? And whether the sum of 250 and 37,500 is 287,500, because no one told me that the mathematical accuracy is working, so I must ignore it. Do you get what I'm saying? Okay. I want you guys to take 30 seconds. If you are seeing a concern, to write it down. Every single one of you. You don't have to write it down. Don't go to town. Like, don't write it down as because you only have 30 seconds. Whilst I'm giving them this 28 seconds remaining, do we have anything online? They're also working, eh? Online, you're also working. You're not washing dishes whilst listening to me or multitasking. You're writing. All right. I'm going to the next one. On the 3rd of November 2022, online marketing costs for October 2022. Google, this was paid to Google Ads LLC, 151,800. Marketing expenses, 132,000, and 19,800 is the VAT component. I check the maths as well. I'm always disappointed to see that the maths works, meaning there is no concern, because that would be an easy indicator of professional competence. Do you agree with me? I'm giving you another 30 seconds to write out your concern. Going once, keep writing. I see online, guys are putting a lot of concerns in the chat box. Right, let's unpack it. So when I was seeing the first line, and in accordance or in line with what the guys online are documenting, firstly, the fees payable for setting up bots to comment negatively on competitors to raid Fodjan's restaurants highly on Twitter feed. Sure. I'm uncomfortable. It just doesn't sit nicely with me. Morally, ethically, call it whatever. And a responsible business leader knows when to see an act that is improper and to call it out and not look the other way. Irrespective of who you're going to be talking to, CFO or junior, you've got to call it out respectfully. Do you agree with me? Do not get fired whilst at it. So you're going to talk nicely, but you're going to be clear Okay, you're not going to beat around the bush, but you're going to be very straightforward about this to say, I'm concerned. I'm concerned that we seem to be doing things that are not ethical or not moral on the basis that we are providing negative comments about our competitors. That's not right. Okay. I mean, it's anti-competitive. And it may, because I didn't research on this part, that's why I used the word may and not or might, be against the competition law. I don't think something like this will be allowed. Do you guys agree with me? Yeah. If you identify this ethical or moral issue, please clearly state it that the payment to Silver Lining for doing something like this would not go against, or would go against our values. Okay, that's a key one to outline. The second line, the couple of concerns I have. On the second one, my first concern is the easy one, to say if you've got a online marketing cost for October. October was the previous month, and I'm addressing November. Why is this 132,000 in the column of marketing expense? I'm having a cut-off issue here. This, I would have expected it to have been accrued in the previous month. So as much as we are having a, what do you call this? A payment, even if we have a payment only happening in November, I would have expected this to have been recorded in the accounts payable account and marketing expense of the prior month. Are you with me? And then the payment, yes, can come through this cash book account, but must go through a column for sundry creditors or accounts payable. Are you with me? Not go through marketing expense. Otherwise, it's not going to be recorded in the correct month. Are you with me, guys? Another concern I have is the fact that Google Ads LLC, if it was a South African company, I would expect it to be Google Ads Pty Limited or Google Ads Limited. And I mean, general knowledge tells us that Google is not a South African company, especially the LLC makes it even clearer. Do you agree with me? So then we've got a foreign supplier here. So what is this foreign supplier supplying us with? They are supplying us with marketing, online marketing. Okay, so I'm having two thoughts, online and marketing. Marketing is it goods or services? Goods or services? Services. So if it's services, this is a services from a foreign country. Do you agree with me? So that importation of services. Importation of services, if the services, I remember when I used to do CTA, that section 71C says to us, if you're importing services, and those services are import services as defined. What are import services as defined? Are those services that are going to be used for purposes other than for making taxable supplies. Are you with me? Well, Fodjan is making taxable supplies. I wouldn't have expected them to meet the definition of an imported services. This must be making taxable supplies. Are you with me? So I wouldn't expect a VAT output to be levied on this 132,000 if it's for making taxable supplies. So I guess maybe we can ask for some documentation for us to clarify whether it meets the definition of an import services or doesn't. If it doesn't meet import services, then I'm concerned about the VAT being raised on it. Are you with me? Well, I guess if it meets the definition of an import services, then it's okay to have the VAT on it, and you are claiming input VAT, but I would expect also for there to be a levy of the output tax on the importation. Are you with me? So it's an in and an out. So that is my concern. Or alternatively, or someone else could say, no, but online marketing. What type of marketing did they say they engage in? Television and digital. So this sounds like a digital marketing. What do we call it for VAT purposes? What kind of services? Electronic services. Electronic services. Thank you. So passionate, you even unmuted. I love that. So that's then if it's electronic services, then Google Ads LLC, the only way they will be able to levy output taxes if they registered for VAT purposes in the country. Do you guys agree with me? Okay. Guys, we're showing off now. Because how do we know this? Someone is sitting there and be like, when we're doing a summary of our preparation, we didn't include these things. Do you get me? We didn't include these things in our PRI as part of the prep. Okay, so if you are lucky, it's an embedded knowledge that's coming from CTA ITC. If not, that's why I call it we are showing off, meaning we are doing what we call high level of application. Do you get what I'm saying? It's not the primary indicators of professional competence. You are showing that you are from a EPC. Do you get what I'm saying? That's what you're doing. So that's my concern. So remember, we've got that table. We're doing consents, including tax consents, income tax. Don't forget to address any income tax concerns. I guess my income tax concern on this specific line item will be the fact that the moment you've got this 132,000 in the incorrect month, I guess this is a prepayment, guys. Sorry, no, this is a post, yeah, like what do we call an accrual? There was an accrual, okay? So I guess the expense would have been deducted in the previous month for income tax purposes. Make sure that your taxable income calculation of this month does not include this number. Do you agree with me? Okay, so those are some of the concerns. Don't forget the documentation, list of documents. Let's talk about the list of documents that you will talk about. I guess you'll talk about, especially the first one, where there is a setting up of the bots. I actually want to know where is the agreement? Can I see the agreement between Silver Lining Media Consultants and Fodjan? Why am I interested in the agreement? I want to confirm the actual scope of the work is exactly this. And if I find that it's exactly this, I'm going to go to the last page and go and see who authorized this, who signed this. Hey, and give me minutes of a meeting where this thing was approved, because I want to know whether potentially the auditors are going to pick up a non-compliance with laws and regulations, even a reportable irregularity, depending on the layer of management that was involved in this. Okay, maybe if it was a junior trading on their own on the side, but to have signed off 287,000, I doubt. There must be a layer of management. On the online marketing costs, invoices, etc., I would expect, and delegation of authority matrix to understand who approves how much at what level. I want to know all those things. Okay, so now, there we go. If you did all this, can you guys see? I'm showing you. Now remember you wrote your little list of concerns. Okay, I want you to mark. Do you have competency 1.1? Did you identify the legal or the moral or the ethical concern? If you did, have one big no, well, a tick. I don't know whether you do a tick or you say competency number 1.1. If you raised a potential cutoff, October versus November, I want you to say 1.2. If you raised governance and tax concerns around the tax, the VAT, the income tax, I want you to 1.3. And then by show of hands, guys, I want to see in the room how many, those who got all three indicators. 2. Okay. We're still okay. Okay. We don't expect you to go get all of them, but most of them. Are you with me? Coverage and depth. Okay. So the next session, I'm going to focus on depth, how to write this concerns. Are you with me? Now I'm just making sure you're getting coverage. But later on, we're going to move into making sure when you write it with reasons and unpacking it. It can't just be a one-line sentence. That's thin. Are you with me? It needs to be a little paragraph of 2 to 3 lines that is meaty and giving me the why and the why and the why. If you don't have 3 whys or don't have 3 because, it's not enough. Are you with me? We'll get there. Right. Let's go to the next. Oh, yes. Yes, sir. Yeah, I can take a question. Yes, go for it. We're going to need a mic. There's a question in the room.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Fedi. My question is regarding that 1.2.
1.2.
Where we're talking about what is the cutoff issue?
Yes.
What more if it's paid in arrears? We are looking from the cash book, from the bank statement.
Yeah.
So how will the cutoff issue comes in? Because this is a bank statement that I'm looking at. It's not an expenditure account.
Good question.
Yes.
But remember the comment I made, they went and put it under the column marketing expenses.
But your topic, your heading on top, it says marketing fund cash
Correct.
book.
But what is a marketing expense? It's an income statement.
Okay.
Do you get what I'm saying? If they said that heading was saying marketing payable,
okay,
then I'll be okay. But the expense, this is not the expense for this month. Because an auditor in me, I'm going to want to go and check that the total of this expense column goes and agrees to my expenses in the income statement. Are you with me? For this month. For this month. Absolutely.
Okay,
Sorry,
thank
can
you.
I just say something quickly? I was trying to raise my hand, but I think I can't. Can you guys hear me?
Go for it. You are the only one I'll take. Because now I'm at 2. Go for
Yeah,
it.
the thing is, I also actually had the same question as he did. I hear your argument on saying this is an expense, but what happens if we looked at it from a cash book perspective? The whole thing is called cash book. Why did they go on to confuse us, call something cash book, but put things that are in terms of accrual accounting and not necessarily explain? Because honestly, I also was so confused because opening balance comes exactly from the cash book. So my thing was, even with the opening, I was like, okay, I want to see the cash bank statement to verify that indeed this is the amount on the bank statement. Now we move on to say the 155 it's in the column of expense. But why would you then give us a document where it's like you're asking us to do a cash book that is like cash flow statement
that
and in it you're like, oh,
that reconciles to your marketing expense and reconciles to your VAT control account, reconciles to your sundry investments account. Remember, I'm fortunate because I did accounting in grade 8. It was called standard 6 at the time, all the way until grade 12. Are you with me? And if you remember what a cash book looked like, if you're like me, it was a cash payment journal, and it had a lot of other columns to the side. And all these other columns to the side was expense, payable, or whatever you are paying. Yes, on the total column, the first column is the cash book. But then with the reconciliation, to other things. Exactly the case here.
So
Does
are
that
you
make
saying
sense?
then the cash is only in the total column?
Absolutely. The cash is only in the total column.
But then
Everything
what
else,
happens if people misunderstood it? Because you are lucky you had this in grade 8 15 years ago. I also got confused like him. How do the markers work around it?
if someone misses this, it's okay. It's one indicator. But if they keep on missing it, they are not ready for an entry into our profession.
I kept on
Okay.
missing it.
Right. I'm glad. I'm glad. Thank you for speaking up for the ones on the other side. I'll speak for the ones on the side. Right. Thank you. Right. Let's look at the next before we take a quick break. I'm going to give you time to go have a bit of a break. Let's look at a couple more. On the 5th of November 2022, purchase of 1 million put options on the share price of Famous Brands Limited, local company, to mitigate the risk of a downturn in the economy adversely affecting the funding available for marketing. And secondly, professional fee payable for put option investment. Oh, sorry. Let me finish the whole line because I need to do the whole line. Sorry. On the put options, it was paid to Excel stockbrokers, 122,000, and it's an investment, sundry investment. There's no VAT. I see. Interesting. The second one, professional fee payable, just mute. Professional fee payable for put option investment. This was paid to Hinan Bosch, 10,000. And lastly, on the 14th of November 2022, reimbursement of marketing expenses incurred. You're paying a Hambry Family Trust 200,000, and it's falling under the marketing expense, and there's no VAT as well. So, and guys, remember when you are doing it, for the purpose of the session, we're doing like 2 at a time or 3 at a time, but you will do it line by line. Are you with me? Okay. So this one, I'm going to be nice. I'm going to give you 6 minutes break. Okay. So 1 minute you use to jot down your consents, your list of documents. Are you with me? And the other 5 minutes you take a leg stretch and a coffee break for 5 minutes, and then you come back. Right.